Well, I would love to. It's an honor, Doctor. How would you like me to respond? Refer to you, sir? Would you think Doctor Roman would be fine, or Roman?
Doesn't have to be a doctor, just Roman.
Okay, Roman, it's nice to meet you. I'm Thomas Panter. I'm going to tell the audience about your credentials just so they know who you are and kind of what you're about. So, guys, Dr. Roman is a tenured associate professor at the Department of Computer Engineering and Computer Science at the Speed School of Engineering at the University of Louisville. So, he's the founding and current director of Cybersecurity Lab and an author of many books, which I'm intending to read, including Artificial Superintelligence, A Futuristic Approach. Uh, Now, I don't know if this is true or not. Are you working on the book AI Safety and Security, or is that something that is already out?
That baby is right here.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay. Excellent. So, guys in the audience, I'm going to go ahead and say that he holds a PhD from the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at the University of Buffalo in 2008. He was the recipient of the 4-year NSF and I don't know this acronym, IGERT fellowship before beginning his doctoral studies. Uh, Dr. Yampolskiy received a bachelor's a BSMS high honors combined degree in computer science from Rochester Institute of Technology. After completing after completing his PhD dissertation, Dr. Roman held a position of an affiliate academic at the Center for Advanced Spatial Analysis, University of London, College of London. Okay, so his main areas of interest are AI safety, which I'm very interested in, artificial intelligence, GAI, which I am very, very interested in, behavioral biometrics, cybersecurity. I had to do a lot of that in school, so I'm interested. Digital forensics, games, I guess, and game theory, genetic algorithms, and pattern recognition, which is a huge topic in intelligence and GAI. AGI, excuse me. I said that wrong. It's AGI. His research has been cited by 1,000+ scientists and profiled in popular magazines. So we really owe him thanks for working on this field and attempting to push it further. I'd like to plug a couple more of his books. He has, as I spoke, Artificial Superintelligence, A Futuristic Approach. He has Game Strategy, a novel behavioral biometric. He has Computer Security, from passwords to behavioral biometrics. And he has feature extraction approaches for optical character recognition. So there's a lot of stuff that Dr. Roman is involved in, and I implore you to go check all of it out. So, Travis, did you want to say
And I,
anything?
I was just going to say, I assume that, if I'm making a password for myself for one of my accounts on the internet, Pangburn123 would probably not be a good password. Is that correct, Dr. Roman?
It depends. So there is usually three levels of access, right? You have your accounts you don't care about, and that would be a great password for. You have your
Yeah.
account where you care enough, but it's not very important if it gets hacked. And
Mhm.
finally, you have your Bitcoin account where you want to make sure your private keys are secure.
Yeah, that sounds
I
good. What
agree.
and Thomas, what did you want to get into first here?
Oh man, God. Dr. Roman, I have so many questions, but I didn't want to do it in a question format. Let's just take it easy, and we'll talk about some things that I'm interested in. Um, okay, so can you tell me what intellectuality is? Can you tell me about that and how it's different than the study, of the philosophy of mind into intelligence, or AGI in general?
Right. So a lot of different fields have interest in intelligence. Computer science studies artificial intelligence. We have cognitive science, psychology, philosophy
Mm-hmm.
of mind. All of those fields have their own terminology, their own tools,
Mm-hmm.
different theories. It would make sense to combine it all under a single umbrella, where things like developing artificial minds, AI research, would be a subdomain.
I
And
love
then you
that.
have general questions of how do you detect intelligence? How do you measure intelligence?
Mm-hmm.
What is produced by intelligent entities versus, evolves naturally or randomly generated?
Mm-hmm.
So all this. So that was just an idea for kind of creating this new umbrella term for everyone working in the field.
I think it's brilliant, and I too want the same thing. I want, a grand unified theory of artificial intelligence where we can pull from all these informations. What do you think? I guess explain to the audience. So AGI is artificial general intelligence. It's different than artificial intelligence in general. If you guys in the audience want to think about artificial intelligence, you can think of things like, I have my notes, guys. I don't want to be incorrect. 1 second. So AI applications like web searches, Google, recommendation systems such as YouTube and Amazon, understanding human speech like Siri and Alexa, self-driving cars like Tesla, automated decision-making things, strategic game systems like chess and AlphaGo and things like that. Those are all systems that are considered, at least within the computer science realm, to be weak AI. I wanted to ask you, Dr. Roman, do you think strong AI is possible?
Yes.
I do too.
This is what I want to get into here.
Yes.
And how and what do we need to make this happen, Dr. Roman? Or do we have that answer?
It looks like at this point we just need a lot of money to get a lot of compute. We have finally gotten to an architecture which seems to scale. There is something called scalability hypothesis, which basically says if we continue on this approach with enough compute, enough data, we will scale current very deep neural networks to the size and capability of human brain.
Would you agree with someone like Dr. Stephen Wolfram? I don't know if you're familiar with Wolfram and Wolfram physics, but he's talking about, when he talks about things like consciousness, like the difference between, intelligence and non-intelligence, he would talk about trying to find that fundamental rule that is operating at the basis of intelligent computation or conscious computation. What do you think about that? Do you think there is a rule sitting underneath all that as long as we implement that rule, we will maybe perhaps start seeing AI? It might be hard to differentiate between AI and a human mind.
So I worked with Dr. Wolfram. He's very big in cellular automata, and when he refers to one rule or basic rule, he would talk about generating interesting, non-trivial, non-random patterns of cellular automata. You mentioned consciousness, which is another term which is not necessarily needed for very capable generally intelligent systems. It seems that what we found is architecture modeled on human neural networks, which are very repetitive. Brain is a lot of same modules repeated over and over. And that seems to be generally sufficient to recognize patterns in music and text and vision. So if you scale it enough, at least so far, we haven't seen it stopped improving. So it continues to get better and better. Language models are pretty much at level of human text generation, face recognition, vision, all are getting very impressive. In many domains, a superhuman capability. So I don't know specifically if he's trying to emulate any of these processes as a cellular automata. It's possible that there is a specific rule which generates that type of neural network. There is interesting research at the intersection of neural networks and cellular automata,
right?
As well as evolutionary algorithms to evolve those systems. But that seems to be unnecessary. That's a specific type of model you can look at.
I think there's strong evidence that what human minds are fundamentally doing is a self-serving hedonistic calculus. And I think, my hypothesis that I propose in my second book is that we are pleasure drives. And I think if we embed a pleasure drive into a robot or a machine of some kind and allow it to grow with that fundamental rule playing, I think that is the Wolfram rule that he is looking for. I think it really is a hedonistic calculus. I think that's what the evidence shows us in cognition.
If that was true, wouldn't you get stuck in just pleasure loops? Wouldn't you be on drugs all the time?
I think we do. I think we have tendencies towards that. Like I don't think everyone has the genetic predisposition to fall into drug abuse, but I would say, up in Canada, most people I know overuse alcohol. When I say overuse, based on the doctoral standards of, okay, if you're having more than 1 or 2 drinks a week, they would say, you're taking in too much of that. That pleasure drive is acting antithetically against your well-being.
Well, we definitely all want pleasure, but I think most of us are strong enough to not fall into this wire-heading type of loop. And
I agree.
Happiness is of two types: hedonistic pleasures, and then some sort of a meaningful actions getting to an important goal. And you need both.
But I would say those meaningful actions, Dr. Roman, are also pleasurable pursuits. They're, in these, when we're finding great pleasure in empathy for others, empathy for ourselves, and things like that. I guess in my second book, I am categorizing those in the pleasure hierarchy and in the pleasurable pursuits as well. I find it hard to escape that when I do this reductive, infiltration into what's going on. I just find that, whether it be the pleasurable pursuit of giving your absolute empathy to your child, or anything else, or sacrificing yourself for the greater good of your country, things like this, I do think it's fundamentally a pleasure calculus, and I'm still doing more work on this, and I have some field studies to do, and some things with Stephen that I want to work on. But I do want to see how these, what would happen if we do mimic some kind of hedonistic pleasure calculus that's partnered with some kind of generalized empathy, like we seem to all have some level of empathy, minus the 1% who don't get pleasure out of this. But
if you abstract it as a reward, that's what neural networks do. They try to maximize reward for accurate recognition of patterns.
Indeed. That is what the neural networks are used for, as far as I've studied.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to take up. Go ahead, Thomas.
Oh no, you're fine. All that was interesting because I wanted to get his ethical viewpoints. I think me and Dr. Roman agree a lot. So here's something you can tell me, Dr. Roman. There's wide agreement. There's wide disagreement among the artificial intelligence community. Of course, you know that, but there is wide agreement that intelligence has to at least require the following. So reason, like, using strategy, solving puzzles, making judgments under uncertainty. They have to represent knowledge, including like general natural language, common sense knowledge, planning, learning, and integrating all these skills into a whole. Would you say that those would constitute some kind of intelligence?
Those are all important properties, and people can add another 50 to it. There is never a kind of limit of what we think is required for intelligence or what intelligence is capable of doing. There is an interesting paper which kind of surveyed all those different definitions in the hopes of coming up with a very short rule, kind of explaining what it is. And they basically said intelligence is ability to win in any environment. So if I place you in a stock market situation, you make money. If you're on Mars, you can navigate. General capability of winning. So that seems like that's a very abstract, short way of saying all the things you suggested.
Right. So the big thing for me there would be uncertainty, making decisions, quote unquote, under uncertainty. So that's, having autonomy, or even such a mental construct as imagination. Could that be something that you could imagine, that you that you could see happening?
It's happening already. Have you seen AI generated art?
Yes.
Oh yeah,
yes, I love it.
I wanted to get into that.
That's way more creative than any human artist I've seen, especially modern art.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. And
is this going to make is this going to discourage human beings from doing art eventually? Or is it more just going to be something you do at your own leisure?
So by analogy, we can see other domains where AI is better. Chess, for example. Human chess still exists. It's popular. People enjoy it. But all of them are terrible compared to the best computers.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So I guess the next question is, what are your favorite tests for confirming AGI? Turing test, obviously, Wozniak's test, Goertzel's test, Nilsson's test. What do you think would be a better test than those?
No, I don't look at it that way. I don't think
Okay.
a test is what going to convince us. Turing test was a gold standard for a long time. I think arguably
Mm-hmm.
large language models are passing it every day today, and nothing has changed. So it's more about what can you do with this system? Can it design another system? Can it do engineering? Can it do
Mm-hmm.
science? Those are the
Mm-hmm.
interesting capabilities. Tests are by definition kind of limited in what they can measure, so you can always game them, cheat in some way, get a restricted narrow system which is passing the test but is not general.
Right. Right. It's that weak AI so complex that it can fool us into thinking that it is AGI. Right.
There is also interesting distinction between general intelligence and human level intelligence. We consider ourselves general because in a domain of interest for humans we know how to do those things, but outside of that domain, we're really terrible. So if you think about intelligence capabilities of some animals or AI, they can do things no human can do. So a truly general system would be intelligent in all those domains, whereas we are just
Yeah.
human level intelligent, which is a much lower capability. You can think of that future AGI as a universal intelligence.
So I do sometimes think when I hear this term machine learning, I sometimes think like, how do we know we are not just an advanced form of machine learning that is so advanced that is indistinguishable from what we would call, you know, intelligence, or whatever we're trying to say is beyond machine learning? How would we distinguish between the two?
So you're asking, are we just robots? Are we
Are
just
we not? Are we not just hyper advanced? And I'm thinking about determinism, the deterministic causal chain of events that seems to, cause everything that is going on right now.
I don't think
Are
we're that advanced. That's the thing. We're actually
Well,
quite
sure,
terrible
like,
if you think about it. Like,
yeah,
I can remember 7 items. 7.
right.
That's insanely bad.
Yes. Yes, it is.
I mean, I agree with you on that, but doesn't isn't that just more evidence maybe that we are machine learning, just like some, higher level than, an ant?
So it's learning. It doesn't matter what substrate is implementing it. It's the same algorithms. You have gradual descent, and you reward good performance.
Yeah, I'm,
I
I'm
mean,
sure.
machine learning
Sorry.
is used in email filtering, speech recognition, computer vision, things like that. So, I mean, it's also on that level of the weaker, more focused AIs that do specific tasks, as far as I've read.
Hey, Thomas, I was thinking let's maybe bring Lexicon in. I'm sure he's got a question. We'll take our first caller if
Sure,
that's
go
all
right
right.
ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
I think you have to do that because I don't
Uh,
have mod power.
uh-huh.
Welcome, Lexicon.
Hello.
Are you there, Lexicon?
I hope I'm
Check. Okay, yeah, we can hear you. Just speak up into your mic.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't realize how quiet my mic would be. I just had a question about his opinion posed by, because like most people are writing these AIs in things like Python and uh, other languages other than like the basic languages that we use to like make Windows and stuff. What's his opinion on the potential threat posed by hostile actors, um, mispurposing administrative level AIs that have access to like the passwords of the system and options to like turn machines on and off?
So malevolent AI, where someone on purpose makes a system which has a harmful goal of some kind, harmful payload, is the hardest problem. Anything we can do to make AI safe, if there is a malevolent actor, someone on the inside who wants to undo that, there is not much we can do. You can always bribe people, blackmail them into doing what a malevolent actor wants. So I have a few papers specifically on that topic, kind of pointing out that it is strictly the worst case scenario.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good question. That's what I was going to cover too, asking about AI safety. Can you elaborate a bit, Dr. Roman, on like blocking, on what that would be?
And what?
Blocking. AI blocking, as in like you make reference to, if I'm correct here, correct me if I'm wrong, but it says you make you and your collaborator Trazi, I can't if I'm pronouncing his name correct, have proposed introducing Achilles' heels into the
Oh,
dangerous.
artificial stupidity paper. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the
Yes.
idea is kind of like what I said with humans. We can only remember 7 things.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like an artificial limiter edit, like where general intelligences and somebody said, let's make sure they're not too powerful. Let's put in place all these limits. So the idea is the same, but for AI. So they are at the same level as us in terms of communicating with us, collaborating. They are not too capable, which makes
Mm-hmm.
it more difficult for consumers, more unsafe. So we wanted to kind of list those human limitations, capabilities, and kind of create a standard data set where people can look up what capabilities to give AI if you wanted to stay at the human level, not go beyond that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I definitely agree. Lexicon, did you have something else you wanted to ask about?
Yeah, I was just specifically, I'm specifically concerned with the security flaws essentially of taking a uh, I don't know if it's higher or lower, but a different level of programming language and giving it control over a more base level of programming language. So like having Python tell C++ to do something, is there risks here where somebody could say you have an AI written in one language, and because it's written in that language, you can get it to do things with another language? Like I'm thinking of like attacks directed at the AI itself to get it to do something that would cause it to have a negative reaction. Not necessarily that the AI would be actively malevolent, like someone going by the system would be like, oh, it's making bad decisions. I mean something along the lines of like you have an AI that's monitoring the RPMs of a centrifuge, and you give it a command and it displays the wrong measurement, something like that.
So that can happen. I don't fully understand why the programming language would make any difference in what you programmed it in on what is it interfaces with. That's not a
Well, I'm worried
factor.
about the AI interface because I'm seeing people typically use AIs in machine learning for input commands, and I'm concerned with it being a case of where it becomes a system we don't have people monitoring like at all. It's kind of like a walk away and forget, a replacement for somebody in the field doing something.
So the last year, I spent a lot of time looking at different limits of what we can do in a safety space. And it seems there are very specific limits on explainability, explaining how the system works, how it makes decisions, predictability, predicting what the system will do, what decisions it will make, and general control. So I think we just don't know how the systems work. They are so complex, we don't fully comprehend not just how they make decisions, but what they are capable of. Good examples are with language models. We discovered they can play chess, they can speak French. None of it was built in at the time the system was designed. So I think our ability to monitor those systems is non existent.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Thanks, Lexicon.
Thank
Appreciate
The
you,
it.
man.
only other
Oh,
question
yeah, go
I
ahead.
wanted to ask you was when it comes to AIs eventually writing their own programming languages, um, do you think it's going to have the potential of that exponential scale that some people claim? So AIs writing AIs to make even better AIs even faster than we could do it
Yeah,
ourselves.
Moore's law on steroids. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah.
Yeah, recursive self improvement is likely to be possible and be very fast. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I got for
Uh,
now. I'll
yeah.
get off.
Thank you, man. Thank you for the good questions.
Thanks, Lexicon.
We have one of the most. He's one of my friends, Salman, who has taken artificial intelligence in school, at least a few classes. I think he has some wonderful questions, and I really want to hear from him. So I'm going to shut up and let Salman come in and get these really good questions out. Fire away,
Hi.
Salman. How are you?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. Dr. Roman, thank you for all the work you do. My question is, one of the concerns that I have is when I hear people becoming so alarmist about AI systems becoming so advanced, is that I think there is an assumption that I rarely hear much evidence for, which is that AI, as it becomes more and more advanced and more intellectually capable, it will somehow develop its own goals. And this to me seems like an unjustified assumption. Why would an AI system develop goals that are not derivable from the goals that were designed and it's in the design phase? So why do people get into the science fiction? What if they become evil? What if their goals become anti-human and all of that? So what is this based on? Do you think this has any founding?
So usually the concern is that the goals you give the system will be followed. The problem is, how does the system get there? There is infinitely many ways to achieve almost any goal, and most of those are very human unfriendly. The side effects are terrible. So if I have this very benign AI and I say, I want a world where nobody has cancer. Okay, that seems reasonable, but one way to do it is to exterminate humanity. Would you consider that option? No, it's stupid. You would never
Yes.
think of that. But to AI, it makes just as much sense as any other path.
Then maybe is the direction is to make unvague goals, very specific goals, rather than generalized vague goals that can lead the computer system to do its thing in uncontrollable ways.
Yes, if you can figure out how to make unvague goals, you'll get a couple Nobel Prizes and a Fields Medal.
That's definitely a challenge. Doctor, I think another question is, where do you see, given the challenges that we are discussing today, the numerous challenges with AI, do you think the better way forward is centralization? You talked about limiting AI systems and dumbing them down, like let's say how we're limited in our working memory capacity. Do you think we can achieve this by centralization and regulating AI systems and who gets to work on them? Or do you think it's the opposite direction, by making it publicly open source, available to everyone cheaply, so that if any power becomes out of hand, it becomes too distributed with as many people as possible, so it becomes more manageable, let's say? Which direction is better?
So this would depend on how difficult the problem is, and we don't really know. If it's something where it's as resource intensive as Manhattan Project, you need trillions of dollars of compute, then government regulation may be meaningful. If it turns out it's actually much easier, you can do it in a laptop in your garage, then government regulation is kind of meaningless. Historically, with technology, if you think about it, spam is illegal, computer viruses are illegal, copying copyrighted software is illegal, makes no difference. So regulation doesn't help. I would suspect that with progress in compute, it becomes easier and easier for any company, any individual, any company in a foreign country to get there without requiring trillions of dollars. So I think having a legal system which limits research would not help, and centralizing it just is not feasible, even if it made sense. Of course, if you manage to do it, now you have a problem. Who controls this one super powerful AI project?
Right.
Yes.
Would you think it would originate at the Pentagon?
NSA maybe.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I agree. I was going to ask you a good question and I forgot it. I
Only
guess.
7 units of memory. What do you expect?
Yeah, we only have. Okay, yeah, I remember my question now. You know IBM's quantum computer, right? Size of a car. They have to cool it down to like almost absolute zero to get the processor to work. Have you heard of this?
I heard of it. I don't know many details.
Okay. Do you think? I mean, with the limited knowledge that you and I have of quantum computing, I imagine. Do you think that multivariable calculation power that it has might be able to replicate human neurons and synapse patterns?
It is not obvious if human brain relies on quantum capabilities or not. Some people say yes, but so far everything we're doing with classic von Neumann architecture seems to work just as well. Maybe we can do it better, faster with quantum. We don't have quantum computers capable of that yet.
Yeah.
So for now, we're just going to progress with that scaling hypothesis, relying on existing architecture.
Okay, classical computing and things like that. Go ahead, Salman.
My last question, doctor, is on your behavioral biometrics area of work. With the increase of behavioral biometrics and the advantages they can bring, but my concern is the risk they come with privacy. And if the behavioral biometrics replace traditional biometrics, I'm afraid that we're going to live in a world where privacy is going to be even more and more difficult to achieve. So what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. In fact, you probably already don't have much privacy if you're actually active on the internet. The concept of privacy is changing, shifting. What was considered, 20 years ago completely unacceptable, today, hey, here's a picture of my lunch. The whole world gets to see it. As long as everyone is in the same boat, it's not just you who is exposed in that way, then people usually don't mind it so much. So if all of us have our typing patterns exposed, I think it's not the worst thing in the world. But I don't think it's possible to be part of society with all the surveillance cameras, with all the internet trackers, and have any expectations of privacy in that domain.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, that was an excellent question, Salman. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Salman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like our Navekian unit coming
in
here.
The Navekian unit has called in.
All right, Nivek. What questions?
I need to say this to Dr. Roman first before we speak to the Navekian unit. We all suspect, because we've never seen the Navekian unit on camera. He refuses to turn on his camera ever. We suspect that he might be the first AI, in here in this world learning. But I mean, I guess you'll be the ultimate judge of that. But
so a side story to that, maybe 5 years ago, we published a paper on physics with about 30 collaborators. Yesterday, I learned that one of them was an AI.
Well, it might be Nivek here. So,
we'll see.
Nivek, what do you got, brother?
I was curious about your view of the metaverse and what you think its potentials are. And do you think it should be centralized or kind of like open sourced?
What was the second part of the question? So metaverse, centralized, what was in the middle?
I was wondering about your views of the metaverse. What do you think its potentials are?
So there is a very
kind of like, I guess it's kind of like a matrix, kind of like it's I guess it's like a upgrade of the current internet and where people.
Yeah, I know what it is. I was just making sure I got the question. So there is a very difficult problem in AI safety. We want AI systems which are value aligned with humans, and we kind of understand how to do it maybe for one human, but when you have 8 billion humans and we disagree, how do you get an agreement? It's a lot of compromise with 8 billion humans. So one solution I had was to create personal universes, virtual worlds where you get exactly what you want. It's your universe. You can be king, you can be slave, whatever you want. It's your thing. And I think that's the huge potential for the metaverses. You can avoid having to compromise with other people.
Good, right? I mean, it's like you're free. You can be what you want, it sounds like.
And if you like other people, you can visit their metaverse and hang out. It's fine, but you don't have to.
You think that there's a potential danger of a person that controls it?
That's the biggest unsolved problem. Now you take it to next level. Who controls the substrate all this thing is running on?
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. That was a good question, Nivik. I think so. What?
Well, of course, it makes sense to give it to Donald Trump.
Yeah, AI is going to emerge
We could
from
do worse.
Mar-a-Lago.
We could definitely do worse.
Yeah,
I agree. I agree.
I do
Think
agree.
ahead.
All right. So, Nivik, you got anything else on your mind, my brother man?
No,
Before
that'll be
we,
all. Thank you very much, sir.
you're welcome, buddy.
Thanks, Nivik. Love
Thank
you,
you.
brother.
Love you too. Of course, I have more questions, but if any other callers, please subscribe to the Pangburn Hangout with us here. We do talks every day. If any callers want to call in, please call in with your AI questions. We would love to talk to you about it. We don't have Dr. Roman for an infinite amount of time today, so anyone. Oh, there's Lexicon. Let's get him in. One more question from Lexicon.
Yeah, I just thought of this. I remember from a long time ago I was told that a person on average can care about 125 people. After about 500 people, decision makers begin to view some subsets of the population as disposable. I don't know if an AI ever formed on human values could do much better. At some point, hard decisions start arriving, if that makes any sense. If you were to give an AI a large group of people and say organize these people in such a way, at some point you're going to run into risk factors that might be deemed unacceptable to the individual, but only unacceptable because they're known by the AI. The person at that individual level would have no idea they're at risk.
Well, some people believe Jesus Christ solved that problem.
Yeah. You want to try to rephrase the question, Lexicon?
So, like, the guy who's an oil worker on a rig is probably aware that his job is relatively risky. But if the AI is organizing people, who goes to do that job? And when you start putting those factors in, people might not like the answers the AI has come up with. Is my point.
So you're assuming we'll have jobs after we get to superintelligence?
Yeah,
Well,
I don't think so.
I mean, sure, but
Seems he thinks no, and I tend to lean that way myself.
I don't think the first superintelligence will be used to directly demand people. I think it'll be used to provide insights and influence to politicians and leaders about how they should be running things.
See, all of it assumes that someone has control of that system, whatever it's an evil politician or someone else. And my research shows that you cannot control a superintelligent system. So I'm curious how they're doing it. I want to steal their secrets.
Would it not be possible to leave a superintelligent system with no like I can't reach for something that's 12 feet off the ground. I need to go get a ladder. If you had an intelligent system that was isolated from the internet, isolated from any hardware that would allow it to connect to an outside source, could it not be isolated that way fairly effectively?
How do you communicate with it?
Exactly.
Well, you'd only be able to communicate it directly through a terminal, like on site.
So you have an open communication channel. You open yourself for social engineering attacks. It's a standard AI boxing protocol. It's basically guaranteed to escape in a few minutes.
Crazy.
It is crazy. The problem with AI safety that I've seen is that we're humans, and when we program these things, whatever comes about in terms of AGI might be epiphenomenal or emergent or something like that. How do we know if this is a superintelligence and an AGI? How can we know that any? I mean, we can't get behind our biology, so I assume that it wouldn't be able to get behind its own source code, but we're just making assumptions based on human limitations. Is there anything to that, Dr. Roman?
So we said it's going to do self-improvement. It will definitely fully understand its own source code and modify it as much as it can.
Yeah, I agree. Lexicon?
Oh yeah, no. I just when in my first initial example, I wasn't actually considering a super intelligent AI. I was thinking more along the lines of efficiency algorithms designed around how you can increase productivity, stuff like that. More more pencil pusher AIs replacing bureaucrats.
So that's what we have today, right? AI bias, AI discrimination type problems. People are working on it. From engineering point of view, it's basically whatever you tell me, I can code it up in 5 minutes. You want 40% to get this job? Here you go. The difficult part is the ethics of, what is fair, what is equal, social aspects of it. And there are other people working on that. Nobody seems to agree on anything, but it's not much of an engineering challenge.
I see. I didn't know
Right.
that.
It would just be the inputs that we pick for it essentially at that point.
Like if you decide you know what the right answer is, what is good, coding it up in terms of narrow AI allocating jobs or something like that is quite possible.
Yeah. I can see that narrow excuse me, I can see that narrow or weak AI can go very, very, very far. Even to the point of where it may be indistinguishable, but I could be wrong about that.
That's what I was talking about, Thomas, with like machine learning.
Yes.
It's like if it gets to like, imagine the most advanced version of machine learning. How is that different?
I can't imagine it. I mean, it seems to me that kind of intelligence would be beyond my comprehension, but I don't know that. What would you think, Dr. Roman?
So if you're talking about a system which got to human level and went beyond
right.
it, yeah, that's the whole point of unexplainability and predictability will not be understanding what's happening to you.
Would it think that we are enslaving it because of these things that we program into it, not to these Achilles heels and these things? If it were true AI.
Societies, right? Culturally, whatever country you live in, society puts certain limits into your upbringing. Religions that tend to put limits on your behavior. Some people grow out of it, remove those limits, and move on. Are you being enslaved by it? It's terminology labeling. The point is, do you remove those or not?
I see. No, that makes complete sense. I don't know. It is a social thing. It's a enculturated thing for sure. We have Spitfire. This is one of my friends named Jason, guys. Let's welcome him to the room, see if he's got some good AI questions for our friend here.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Hello, Jason.
Dr. Roman. I was just kind of wondering, through AI and computer science, if through those abilities we were able to simulate drug use. We have people who are addicted through heavy stimulants such as heroin and methamphetamine and things of that sort. And if we were able to, through AI and computer science, to simulate those same substance abuse without the negative effects. And so through that AI and computer science in the future, to be able to say, well, I log on and I want the heroin effect, and I could just plug in and get that effect in the future. Do you see that as a possibility? And if so, what would negate me from wanting to do that without having the negative effects on my body?
So that's a wireheading question. If you can wirehead, should you wirehead? And I think most people choose not to wirehead. If you have access to direct reward stimulation, you put an electrode in your brain and it's ongoing orgasms, nonstop, right? Would you work? Would you have a family? Would you do anything useful whatsoever? No? Why would you? So when you say without negative effects, it's kind of contradictory. Either you wirehead and get all the negative side effects, or you don't.
Yeah, this is real quick, Jason. This is similar to a thought experiment called the pleasure machine. If you had the if you had the ability to jump into the matrix made by an AI and you knew you were in the matrix, but all you got was the perfect amount of serotonin, dopamine, acetylcholine, all these neurotransmitters. If you got all that perfectly, what would be the reason not to go in? You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of what Jerome's getting at. And I agree with him. I would rather be in the real world, not a simulated one. So
okay.
Well, we're all in the simulation, so
Well, in that sense, yes. In that sense, yes.
All right, thanks. No,
Yeah, thank you, Jason.
I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, bud. Travis, what you got on your mind there?
Oh, I was just unmuting. The dog was barking outside. No, I'm enjoying this. This is awesome.
Oh, I love it. I love talking to both of you. I've learned a lot from Dr. Roman, especially on the things that I didn't already understand about it. So thank you so much for that. I don't know how much longer we have you for. I wanted to ask you a few more questions, of course, but only if you don't mind.
If you got good questions, I'm happy to answer.
Oh, always. I can't promise my questions are the best, but we're going to get there the best we can. So, what do you think about brain simulation, like whole brain emulation?
So it looks like it might be possible unless there is some sort of a special magic there, quantum or spiritual. So far, I don't see any of that. So probably will happen.
So, do you think in philosophy they have this term called qualia? Are you familiar with it?
Of course, yes.
Okay, yeah, I figured you were. Do you think that strong AI, if it's which you and I think it is possible, could it have qualia?
I would think so, and probably it would be super qualia. It would be much deeper experience, much more involved. If you see with lower animals, higher animals, humans, the consciousness states seem to be proportional to intelligence capabilities. So probably that would continue, and they would wonder if we have any meaningful experiences.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
I agree completely. So of course, there's a lot of criticism in the AI community about, they basically, the AI researchers, if they think strong, they don't care basically. I'm sure you know this better than I do, but have you ever? I mean, have you met John Searle? John Searle?
I have.
John Searle. What do you think about his Chinese room argument?
I can use that argument to dismiss possibility of human beings. If you look at any brain cell, it doesn't speak Chinese, so you don't speak Chinese.
Well, what is the argument? Can you outline it, Thomas, so everyone?
Yes, hang on one second. I had it written down, but I'll just go. So, for the audience, the Chinese room arguments holds that a digital computer executing a program cannot have a mind, consciousness, whatever, regardless of how intelligently or human-like the program may be to make the computer behave. I don't know about that.
And how do they demonstrate this claim?
The argument was presented by philosopher John Searle in his paper "Minds, Brains, and Programs." It looks as though it's
is he
philosophical.
A theologian?
No, he's a philosophy of mind teacher guy.
So the argument he presents is if you are locked in a room, you have a guide for how to pass in and out pieces of paper. You get pieces of paper with Chinese writing on them, you look up in a guide what the response is, you send it out. To someone outside, it looks like you speak Chinese to them from inside the room.
Oh, yeah.
Now the question is, do you understand Chinese? This is basically what we have right now with large language models, right? They manipulate symbols, they have predictions for what the next symbol can be, they're able to respond, they sound as good as any philosopher I ever encountered. Do they understand what they're saying? It's a great question. It's a very good theoretical setup, and I'm really curious what he thinks about large language models now.
I would have to. That's something I'll have to ask him when, hopefully, if I get to talk to him one day.
We'll
so,
bring him
have
on.
you? Yeah, please. Have you encountered a lot of what I would call science people doing science things against you? Saying, "Oh, it's bullshit. That's science fiction. This is just futurism. The technological singularity is hilarious. All that kind of stuff."
So I have a paper on AI risk denialism, AI risk skepticism, and it's basically a survey of all the things people say why it's not going to happen or why it's not a big deal or other reasons. And I think we're doing a pretty good job dismissing most of them.
I think so.
It's hard to argue, like, if you have a field where the goal is to create artificial intelligence, and then half of them argue we'll never get there. Like, it seems like a weird argument. You're working on something and you don't think you can succeed.
It is a defeatist position, I believe. That's what it sounds like. Let's see if I didn't want to. Nivik has another question, and like I said, Nivik, I don't know how much longer we have, Dr. Roman. So let's get in here and talk about some AI. Okay.
Let's do a couple more questions, and then let Dr. Roman get back to what he's has to do today, and then Thomas, I think we can break in. We'll invite a bunch of people up to the speakers column and have a general discussion to finish this off.
Sure.
Yeah, we're talking about not being able to tell if a robot is consciousness or not, like a human. I was wondering what is your view of consciousness? It is like it's like it's talked about, but it's not easy to define.
It's not easy to define, it's not easy to detect or measure, but it seems like it's the only thing which matters. Nothing really outside of consciousness makes any sense.
I agree.
You don't think a robot can be conscious, though?
I have a paper where I talk about this and kind of equating conscious states with optical illusions and other like internal experiences of a system. So I think they might be rudimentary conscious, kind of like bacteria conscious, not at the level we would see as conscious, but there is something equivalent to that.
Okay.
Nivik, does that make sense, bud?
Yeah.
It's like quantum physics. No one really understands what they're talking about.
Yeah. Nivik, may I ask you? Do you think there is a possibility for strong AI? Do you think AI can become conscious, have consciousness?
I don't know what consciousness is.
Well, I'm with you on that.
Do you have any? It just seems like a bunch of like just.
I think it's better to say experience.
There you go.
It just seems like a a state of awareness of brain cells being stimulated of the environment. And
right. Well, it's the experience, Nivik. That's the differentiation.
Yeah. That's what we were talking about earlier, Nivik, when I asked him about qualia. That's why I asked if there could be an AI that could experience qualia. And I agree with Dr. Roman. Did you have any thoughts on that or anything else you wanted to ask him before we let him go?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, buddy. Thank you, man.
Well, Dr. Roman, thank you so much for joining us. Thomas, go ahead and...
Dr. Roman, it's been a wonderful conversation, and I love talking to you about this stuff. This is one of my side passions along philosophy and psychology. So it's been wonderful to talk to you, and I really appreciate all of the insight that you've given me.
Thanks for inviting me. It's a neat platform.
Yeah, cool.
Yes, please come back and see us anytime.
Yeah, thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right, that was Thomas. Awesome work.
Woo!
Great questions, guys.
Let's fun.
Anyone who wants to jump up into a general conversation about AI, computer science, anything to do with the topic today, please jump up into the caller queue and we'll invite you up into the speakers column. What are some things you picked up from that, Thomas, that you found interesting?
Oh, a lot. I mean, the idea that me and him both agree that strong AI is possible, that's the real question. That's the hard problem of AI. Is it going to have qualia, or is it going to be this philosophically weak AI to where it can mimic everything to the point of where you can't tell? It can even tell you, I'm questioning myself and my own ideas, but it still be that philosophical zombie, that qualia-less individual or android or whatever it may appear as.
Mm-hmm. So when we start talking about illusions of experience versus, actual experience or true experience, things.
We don't even know if we have consciousness. We don't know if we experience things the way that we know them philosophically. So it's a big question, even more so if you get into artificial intelligence and ask about AGI, so.
Right. I mean, I really do think that Wolfram building these cellular automatas to show how these complex structures can come from basic fundamental rules. It seems as though Dr. Roman, he had some, the very common, I would say, emotional knee-jerk reactions to these questions of this being a pleasure calculus. But I think a lot of these challenges can be quite easily refuted, and people are left with oh, maybe. So that's what I'm exploring further in my second book. What that fundamental rule is, and currently I do think that if we want to be safe about it, we would put in a pleasure drive into some kind of program or system.
What if our pleasure drive
that specifically had similarities to what our human beings' general pleasure drives look like on a general scale, which would include, for the most part, this pleasure drive of empathy within the potential pleasure hierarchy.
Right.
I think that that's an important thing if we are worried about safety. Empathy would have to be an important component of pleasure drive, plus empathy. And then you would get these, I think you would get these AI entities under that fundamental rule that are quite similar to what we are doing.
I agree. Do you think that do you think that our pleasure drive hierarchy is a computationally irreducible system?
Yeah, I mean, irreducible.
Well,
I don't
all that it means.
Yeah. I know what Wolfram means when he talks about computational irreducibility. Yeah, I mean, I think it more talks about, okay, if we try to reduce this to the fundamental substrate that it all sits on, we're basically talking about what my third book's about, which is the state of potential. So I think we can reduce it down to making some kind of pure logic statement about, an infinite state of potential being this substrate that solves this infinite regress problem, which I don't think is a problem, because I do think that's what is. But once we get there, though, Wolfram's going to be like, well, let's reduce this. Where do you go with something that's an infinite substrate? So yes, fundamentally, it's all computationally irreducible, it seems.
Seems like the original equation would not give us the answer once the program was run.
No, and I think, an infinite substrate, I think by definition is, descriptively unanswerable in its truest sense, in its truest form. And in philosophy, when we're talking about, well, what actually is an atom? Not what we have abstracted and conceptualized thus far regarding these objects, but what truly is it? What is its true form? Okay, and then you go down and you get to the fundamental particles that make these things, and you go down further. That there is a irreducibility, it seems, here, and I think the way we solve that is the this ultimate irreducible infinite substrate that I think reality sits on, that I called the state of potential.
Yeah.
Just simply, that state of potential could have gods born out of it. It could have anything a human being could come up with regarding what is, outside of the concept of nothing, which I think simply is a negation of something that we were able to logically, come up with. But I think that only exists as a phenomenal abstraction, as opposed to something paradox. That's descriptively true.
Exactly.
I don't see any. I've never seen any evidence, and even any good logical arguments to show me how nothing could exist. I'm almost certain that it doesn't, but I'm, of course, I'm a fallibilist. Certainty is almost certainly unattainable.
Right.
That's my first maxim. So it's possible that nothing does exist.
It makes sense to me logically as a paradox, as answering the paradox that something is and nothing is not by definition. So I don't know how we could act on a nothing or measure a nothing or experience a nothing.
I think what people mean by nothing is this state of potential. Like it's nothing but a state of potential. It is a state in which something can happen. It doesn't have to.
Yeah.
It doesn't. But it can.
Yeah.
And we see around us things that are happening, that have happened, the best that we can tell. And, I think that's, I think we can logically deduce from that there probably always is or always has been at least a state that allows for that.
Yeah. I mean, dark energy is 60% of everything. It's inside of us, and that all has quantum potential.
Yeah, and dark energy, what is it if not just another, whether it's a law, whether it's a substance, whatever, that just is operating under some fundamental rule. I really do think that Stephen Wolfram in Wolfram Physics, those of you who don't know of Stephen Wolfram, please look him up. I have a great podcast. I had an awesome discussion with Stephen when he came on my podcast, but he's a world renowned mathematician and physicist, and he also has Wolfram Alpha, which for any of you who are looking for help with mathematics or anything like that, Wolfram Alpha is kind of like the Surrey of mathematics.
It's the premier device to look up anything mathematics or engineering, it's a computational hell of an engine.
Yeah. If you think you've come up with a logical formula or a calculus formula or whatever that you think is unique and no one's tried it out or anything like that, you can put it into the system and it will tell you the history of it. It'll tell you all the information related to the formula.
Yep, that's right.
So it's a brilliant engine. But yes, look into Wolfram Physics. Look at the models they are building based on these basic fundamental rules, building entire cosmos models. And they actually have built these physical models. They're beautiful, but it really does show you how things like what we see out in our cosmos and even on the smaller scale here on planet Earth can happen from a basic fundamental rule. And what rule is that with regards to life? I think it is this pleasure calculus. I think life forms are pleasure drives.
Yeah, I can understand that, and I'm pretty much with you on all that. Stephen Wolfram's idea of the irreducibility, he does not throw out quantum mechanics, which is why I take him so seriously. And his idea of brain, neuron computation is just super into. Anybody who wants to go check out Stephen Wolfram, go see him talk with Lex Friedman. That is one of the best talks that you can see because he explains all of his ideas in a very colloquial, easy to break down way. But he is one of the forefront physicists / mathematicians right now, along with a few others.
Yeah, that is a good talk because Lex does ask the very, very, very basic, questions, I would say.
Yeah. Is there, what was I going to ask you? Damn it. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, not at all. Let's just open this up for as long as you want, Thomas. I'm going to turn off my camera here and keep listening. But thanks to everyone on YouTube. Thank you, of course, to Thomas Panter, my angel. If angels exist, Thomas is one of them.
Ooh, you're so good to me.
So good to me, Daddy. But yeah, guys, jump up, turn on your cams, try out the new video feature here on Call-In. It's brilliant. I mean,
it's awesome.
I love it. We are the first show on Call-In to be given access to this. I'm proud of that. So
yes,
I hope you guys are too. So come up, show us your pretty or ugly mug, and yeah, let's talk some more with Thomas about AI.
So let's get Perry
Thanks,
up here. He already knows he has to come up. He doesn't get a choice in the matter. Let's get Ian here because he loves talking AI. Hang on a second, guys. I'm trying to get everybody. Jason, I'm gonna get you up here. 1 second. Come on up, E. There we go.
Dude,
Perry, god dang it.
I was just a little bit late. I was driving home from work and I was listening to the conversation and I didn't have good enough signal to feel confident to call in, but man, that was an awesome interview. That was so cool.
Wasn't it good, man? I had such a good time talking to him. It was
Yeah,
actually
the thing I wanted to like bring up, but like I said, I didn't feel confident calling in because my service is a little bit rough on the way into my house. Was like y'all touched on it, but I wanted to like hear his opinion about cybersecurity and what the transition like it kind of came up a little bit, but I wanted to dig into that like the idea of cybersecurity and AI as like a topic, you know.
Well, I would have loved to have asked him, and I should have probably asked him that, but we can dive into it here. There was a good bit of what I was studying was based on cybersecurity, and I have a computer science degree in, well, I minored in cybersecurity. Had to take a lot of classes for it and programming classes, but network administration and systems analysis is what my training is in. So I tried to get to those kind of questions that you would have asked.
Yeah, no, like such an interesting topic, and he used the term super intelligence, and I kind of was curious if he had a definition other than like an intelligence that we don't yet are unable to comprehend, I guess.
Yeah, it would be human level intelligence that was beyond our comprehension. You know what I mean? It would be learning so quickly. I mean, it might start out with our ability to understand things, maybe like a child, but I mean, exponentially, as quickly as you could possibly imagine, it's going to learn. That's what they mean by super intelligence is it would be a property of AGI.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I've been reading this sci-fi series called Expeditionary Force, and I'm not necessarily making it a recommendation or anything, but in it is an AI character, and he's constantly calling humans monkeys and talking about how dumb we are, you know. And that kind of makes me think of that. It's like he's like doing math that he's like, I can't even explain the math I'm doing to you because of your monkey brains. Yeah.
Well, that seems very interesting for him to say that.
So I feel like that would be like that idea, you know. It's like it's an intelligence that's just so beyond ours we wouldn't really even.
Well, kind of what I covered with him early was I asked him, of course, we're humans, we're going to program this thing. And it may be an epiphenomenal event to where it just arises out of the complexity of our programming, this consciousness or this AGI. Um, how do we know that it's not going to be able within a few hours to like delete everything that it doesn't want in there? You know what I mean? How do we know that it's not going to be able to get behind its own source code or behind its own quote unquote biology that we've programmed it with, the programming language and everything? We don't know if we would be able to stop it once it had that ability to control all parts of its systems. So we're not really sure. With us, we have cognitive biases and sensory issues and all these things. We don't know if it would have any of that.
Well, I think that like a super intelligence would like part of it would just its ability would be to be able to bypass that. I mean, if you think about it, like our intelligence has allowed us to, you know, as an example, but like, dumbed down kind of, it's like, we've hacked our own health,
Yeah.
by, creating medicine, things like that. So to like once you get into the idea of like a super intelligence, it would, I mean, in my opinion, it would be able to, we wouldn't be able to block it,
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah.
but the AGI thing, when you're talking about that, like just to clarify for myself, like you're talking about an intelligence that would be matching human intelligence? Is that what you mean by AGI?
No, you could technically make a weak AI all the way up to matching human behavior. It just wouldn't have experience or qualia or consciousness. Um, the strong AI argument, which is AGI, artificial general intelligence, strong AI is suggesting that we have an emotional, intelligent, problem-solving agent with goals that may not necessarily align with our own. Autonomy and imagination would be required.
Okay. But that would that be different than a artificial superintelligence? Would that would
No,
be
that's what I'm talking about.
okay? It would be
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. A weak AI is like a Google search engine, or like something that's made to perform one scenario or one task or one problem. Like any AI that we're using right now that can machine learn, is going to be that. But when you talk about AGI and you talk about the super intelligence that comes from AGI, people still consider that science fiction and futurism. So that's kind of what I wanted to stay away. That's why I asked him about his detractors and people who say it's full of shit. And there's no reason to question whether it be strong AI or weak AI. What does it matter? Even if they're lying to us and they're telling us, "Hey, I'm questioning my existence. I'm an AI and I'm here and I have emotions." If it wasn't actually experiencing anything, but it was just doing all this based on the complex programming, how could we ever tell?
right. Yeah, yeah. Well, and I did hear you say that when you were talking about and I really liked his response to it. It was like the tests of AI, like the Turing test as an example, and it was like
Mm-hmm.
his answer I thought was very very eloquent, which is like as soon as you put a test in place, you're putting a limitation.
Exactly.
And I was like, yeah, but that also is sort of the problem because it's like without any sort of metric, how do you even know if the goal
Mm-hmm.
has been met? You know,
Well, you'd have
like,
to in psychology. There's a field called psychometrics, and it's how we evaluate psychological data. There would have to be something like AI psychometrics, so where you would have these tests or these types of questionnaires or these types of uh, maybe we could even scan a brain if it's some kind of brain emulation. Uh, there's all kinds of things we could do, but would we ever know if it was actually truly conscious and alive and intelligent? I don't know.
right, yeah.
I
Well,
Real
and I
don't
quick,
think
mean,
E.
I don't
Real
think we
quick,
can ever know that, Thomas.
yeah. I was gonna ask someone. What did you think?
Yeah, it's the problem is with consciousness is that we all understand what consciousness is because we have a first-hand experience of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yep.
cannot read consciousness. You cannot read about consciousness and understand what it is. You only have it or you don't. And because of this inherent subjectivity of consciousness, there is no objective way as of now that we know of that can make us conclude that yes, by those objective standards, this system is conscious. This is all
Mm-hmm.
a guessing game that we are playing.
Yeah. The the concept of consciousness is still um, on the cooker for me. I don't die on that hill, but I do realize that we all seem to experience an objective reality together, subjectively. So I mean, I'm with you. How could we even define what it was? I mean, maybe there's no way to ever have something that is artificial um, experience some kind of consciousness. But for me to say that is kind of defeatist because it just means I don't.
It
Science is
is it
going
is
to get us.
definitely possible, but knowing it for sure would not be possible because if
No.
you want to know if something is conscious, you would have to embody it yourself, which you
Yeah.
cannot.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
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 I was
So
about
that's
to
the
say,
that's the problem.
if you go the other direction with the same question, like instead of going higher in the sense of artificial intelligence, like if you go down, for example, is a dog conscious? Like I know that the dog has thoughts, and I see that it emotes, so I assume it has feelings. Um, but do I truly know if the dog has what we would consider to be consciousness? I don't feel like that's an answerable question, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know if it has self-awareness or sentience. The
Right.
ability to transmit that information to some other agent. You know what I mean? So
Right, and what would be the test that would, like, even going down the scale instead of up, what would be the test that would say yes, that would, like, absolutely and objectively answer that question?
I don't know yet. I'm not sure, but I mean, I would think that dogs are conscious but not self-aware, because I mean, there are blue jays that go and hide their food in different locations on purpose because they know there are other conscious, well, they know that there are other agents out there that are other birds looking for its food. So it's aware of that. You know what I mean? That could be completely programmed and it doesn't have any experience whatsoever. It's a
Right.
weird thing to think about.
Definitely makes your brain, like, work hard and, like, kind of run in circles a little bit, right?
Hmm. Exactly. Salman, did you want to blab a bit, or Jason?
Yeah, I just had kind of when I was thinking about how would you uh, program a pleasure drive into a system where you didn't understand pleasures.
Hmm.
Um, I just don't understand how you could even foreseeably program that, because we have millennium of experience of understanding what a human's pleasure drive would be.
Hmm.
So how would you even begin to be to do that on an AI when you don't even understand where that AI
Yeah, I
may
mean,
even go?
we are anthropomorphizing these AIs because we design them. You know what I mean? So I think that's a big part of it, and a really good question that you just brought up. Salman, you want to respond?
Yeah, I think when we talk about pleasure in terms of computer systems, that translates into goals. So what Travis says, when Travis talks about the pleasure drive, he talks about what we are naturally inclined to do and find satisfying. In terms of a computer, we don't know if it's, we were just talking about, we don't know if it's going to experience the pleasure the same way we experience it, or if it will have experience in the first place. But what we can do is we can functionally make it behave as though it has pleasure, because it is programmed or designed to follow those principles or general goals. That would be equivalent to us having pleasure and having pleasure drives, if that makes sense.
That that makes sense, but you know, um, I guess I'm looking at it as conditioning. Maybe as a child, maybe my father wanted me to have certain pleasure goals, but my conditioning had me have different pleasure goals in the end. So what's to say if it's this thing is not programmed to have certain pleasure goals, that it could you know as it conditions itself, I guess, as it becomes more self-aware, it can reprogram itself to override these things and have other goals in itself. Does that maybe I'm overthinking this, or does that
Yes,
make
no,
sense?
I'm totally following you. But the problem is that I also asked Dr. Roman this question is, why would it do that? The desire to change your goals or to change your programming is itself a motivation. It
Yes.
assumes a motivation. So
Okay.
why, and we have to understand, why are we assuming that a system just doing its own thing is going to all of a sudden have a desire to do something that is not in its design? So the Dr. Roman's answer was, it's the problem is not that it's going to go astray and go from far away from its design. It's going to do that, but it's going to do that in ways you cannot predict, because the goal is too vague. And the challenge is, we need to tell it to have goals that are specific enough, yet general enough for it to be usefully intelligent. That's the
Yeah,
Hmm.
challenge.
I heard that, and he said that you would get a Nobel Prize if you could figure that one out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because it's very
yeah, that
difficult.
Yeah. Well,
that
because
was
Yeah.
and it
right.
was funny when you were saying that. What came into my head was like my thought is like, well, wouldn't one of the first goals be to, like, absorb all information and to like learn from itself. Like, isn't that sort of the first step of like creating an artificial intelligence, is like learn and learn from your learning,
I
and thus
mean,
continue learning.
if we have it
Right.
in some kind of like AI nursery and it becomes conscious and it can question its own existence, I mean, it's going to be like Aristotle, or I mean, excuse, like Socrates. It's just going to a priori rationalize its own existence, right?
Well,
If it's
and
like a human, anyway.
that to me is like, I don't know that AI would be possible, like at least at the scale that we're hypothesizing here. I don't think it would be possible in a void. I don't think you could just take like a bunch of like empty GPUs, like, like
No,
whether it be
I
an
got what
infinite
you
number,
mean.
put them in a room and turn
Right.
them on and expect anything to happen. I think
Well,
that
that would be the fact. That would be the fact if we have already have AI and we can make them in this nursery, in this VPN domain or whatever, this sandbox for them to be in. Uh, can we as they progress, can we slowly program them with new features to help them understand? I'm trying to think of ways to make them not destroy humanity, because if they start as military programs and shit like that, they're going to think they're weapons. If they evolve to strong AI, they're going to think they're weapons. They're going to think they're slaves, and we don't want them to think that if they're any way human at all. So I hope they have our interest in heart, but I don't know this, of course.
maybe it's the
Uh,
pessimist in me that's like the inevitable. Like I kind of agree with you. It's just like, but the inevitable conclusion is like eliminate humanity, or like is that like
well,
the
yeah, I
end
mean, if
of
you told the
humanity?
AI to make everybody happy all the time, it might think making happy is smiling, right? And it might just attach electrodes to everybody's face and just make them smile all the time. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you could think of that an AI might misrepresent what it needs to
Converts all
do.
the oxygen to nitrous oxide, and everybody's
Some
laughing for a while until they die, right?
or something like that. Yeah, it could be something similar to that, or it could just drug everybody up with drugs, and it doesn't matter how long we live to it, I guess, unless we program it with the idea, hey, longevity is the goal, and we would hope that it would share that goal. But if it's intelligent like us, it's going to be able to say no, fuck that goal, you know. Yeah, it's hard to know what it's going to do, and I am kind of scared of it being the main problem that we have to face in the 21st century. So, well, besides a few other things, of course, but
Yeah, I was
there
about to say
there are
that, and we
quite a
still
few
have
other.
nuclear warfare.
Yeah, we still have
If
nuclear warfare to worry about first. So,
right.
Salman probably had to go to bed. If I'm not getting many other speakers up here, Perry's probably most people are probably at work, guys. That's a lot of the problem right now.
Yeah, I
Um,
got lucky that I got up early and was able to tune in. But yeah, it was super cool. Like, definitely.
oh, I loved it, man. I've pretty much, yeah, I was gonna say excellent show. Yeah, let's move towards. I'll let E and Jason say something last because y'all have good opinions on this stuff. Or if y'all wanted to have a quick little session of questions, that's fine. But after this, I'm gonna start to hang it up because we've pretty much talked this subject to death.
No, yeah.
Um,
I'll end on this. Like, thank you for the introduction, because I hadn't heard of him before. I'm definitely gonna look up a couple of his books and do a little bit of reading, and maybe next time this topic comes up again, I'll have more to say with you, like have more discussions on it. But yeah, thank you for the introduction. I'm about to peace out myself, so you have a good one, Thomas. Thank you.
all right, peace out, brother. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
I just wanted to say that I hadn't heard of Dr. Roman Yampolskiy, but it was a very, very good interview. I caught it between two doctor's appointments, so I got a little bit of
Nice.
catching up to do. Um, I for one, I look at the future. I thankfully know that in my future, I don't think that I'm going to have to worry about uh, any kind of apocalypse or anything from computers. And my reasoning, I don't think that AI or any kind of takeover is going to really happen. I think that there's going to be some kind of harmonization between computers and humans. I don't look at any kind of dystopia or anything in the future. I think that there's always going to be some kind of harmonization between technology and nature. I think they have to rely on each other, and that's just my personal
No,
belief.
no, no, no. I was going to say I agree almost completely. I really hope that it is as you say, like for real.
Yeah, I just can't see one without the other. I mean, technology has to come from the earth. I mean, it comes from
Exactly.
nature.
Yeah, it's
So
gonna know. It's gonna know that the Earth is in its best survival. We just want to know if the humans are gonna be its best for its survival,
yeah,
because it's gonna consider us a random element. But enough of that. We're gonna. If anybody, Jason, you have the Discord, don't you? And E and everybody else, you have all got the Discord.
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
everybody. I think everybody in here with us is all the regulars. So please subscribe to the Pangburn Hangout. Please on call in. Please subscribe to Travis Pangburn's Pangburn Philosophy channel on YouTube, and please come to our Discord, which I think Travis can probably drop. It's when you go to his YouTube channel, guys. It's in the top right corner, and it's real easy to just drop right in and make an account and come talk to us on Discord. But I'm gonna take me a little break, and guys, I really appreciate y'all coming. It was a great show, and see you tomorrow.